stuff. All right. Oh boy, this camera's giving me fits today. All right. So, now I can actually recall, well, okay, so just in case, because we may be dipping back into these later on. Oh, well, hello, bud. I made a joke in the, or kind of a, yeah, I guess, I don't know what you call it a joke, but I made reference to the fact that today's meditation, like all of the meditations, are accessible to everyone from, 6 to 106 or whatever, and some dogs. And I said that, and I'm like, look at what we got here. I got 2 dogs that are like, I would like to say that she's here for the meditation, but it's more like, you've been with me for months and all of a sudden now you're gone all day and I can't make sense of it. So if you're going to meditate, fine, I'll come and hang out. Oh, buddy. Yeah, she's a good girl. You going to sit with us? You're just going to chill out? Okay, so we've been sitting, I almost feel like I could have left the label off, calling it the 5 aggregates, but it is kind of a neat way of progressing through a series of kind of loosely related meditations. So the first one that we did, which was now a few weeks ago now, because there was the little hiatus there for the end of summer, but our first sit was on form, and in doing so we'd done the body scan meditation because we were really tuning into our bodies. And today we flip the switch. Oh, I can tell just from these two, the body language, that they're all about today's set, which is about feeling. So with feeling, the instruction here is it's less about emotions. Okay, in fact, it's really not. Although emotions can definitely come up, as they will do anytime. Not exactly something that's within our control. The feelings part, let's distinguish a little bit. If the emotions are just like a visceral sensation in our bodies, like it's a set of, sensations and processes and stuff that over time we've come to interpret. Oh, this means happy. This means sad. This means, this constriction in my chest means, anger, whereas this openness and lightness feels like joy. So I don't think we often think about that aspect of it. We just, because why would we, right? It's just like, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling that way. And when we say feeling, what we really mean is we're talking about our emotional state. So the reason I bring that up is to distinguish what we're actually about today, because in the sort of way of thinking about any aspect of human experience, and that's what this series of practices are. So we start with the body and then we kind of move into other areas. And so today's on feeling is more about how we're relating to what we're encountering. So if you're, and I see that you're already sitting, you're already there, you can be lying, you can be, if you're lying, I would suggest, forearms off the ground, fingers up, just so that if exactly. Remember, we always say sleep is wonderful, sleep is not meditation, and sometimes sleep is the practice we want. But so you can decide, you can know if you're like, you know what, I'm starting to feel sleepy, and then the arms go down, so be it. But otherwise, you can be sitting, you can be really, as long as you're in a comfortable position that you can maintain with minimal effort and stay semi-alert. Bob's your uncle, okay? I've just realized that I've sat down with no timer, which is going to make for, I dare say, probably not excitement, but a little bit of uncertainty, but that's okay, let's wing it. So we're not really going to be too worried about, or at least not picking up on our emotions. Instead, we're going to make this practice about identifying our reaction to whatever is going down in a particular moment. So I'm going to leave it up to you, okay, where you allow your focus to lie. But I would actually suggest that it could be any aspect of your experience, really. You could be, your feelings about your thoughts, your feelings about your emotions. But often here, we're talking about our response to some external thing, okay, something in our environment. What I'm going to suggest actually is, rather than a narrow focus, so if you've already dropped into focusing on your breath or onto a particular sensation in your body, you can stay with that if you want, for sure. I like to actually do that regardless of what style of meditation or what my intention is on a particular day. I just call that, just for my own purposes, I think of that as being my on-ramp. So get onto your on-ramp, whatever that is. Let's not make this more complex or difficult, challenging than it needs to be. Take a moment first just to connect with yourself and to arrive right where you are. Often the kind of meditative instruction here is to take a few clearing breaths. But equally, you can use the sensation of your hips or your body or whatever part of you is connecting with the ground or the chair or whatever it is you're supported by. And feel the weight of that. Feel the actual drag of gravity. And let the exhales drop you in further. Let your body settle. Let your attention settle without becoming kind of dopey or lazy. So what I mean by that is less an antenna, less trying to pick up every aspect of experience, and more coming into and staying in the room. Or another way that we might conceive of this is staying in the present. So not time traveling, not casting out forward into imagined futures, not dropping into the past, ruminating or remembering. It's funny, we can always, I get into the habit of talking about like ruminating in the past or being anxious or worried about the future. But those things they don't have to be negative. They don't have to be unpleasant to bring it back to the form of meditation we're coming to in a moment. Often those can be fantastical, like they can be fantasies or they can be like savoring memories. So whether it's positive or negative or neutral, and now I'm directly tipping my hand to where we're going. See if you can just bring your attention to what is right directly in front of you. What is here right now? And here could be 2 feet in front of your face, or it could be kind of the wingspan of your arms, or in particular, and I'm going to actually demo it myself. If you open your eyes, and only opening your eyes if that's not gonna, we often close our eyes to go inside. So opening our eyes is a way of inviting the world, the external world, in, or at least connecting out. And you might put let's put a number on this. Let's work with a scale, okay? So the labels that we're going to use, and we can, if you're opening up your attention now to the kind of the room that you're in, or at least your immediate vicinity, just notice your sort of overall assessment. Not thinking about it, just like in your gut, in your body, in your presence being here. Is this experience of right now, is it pleasant? And let's assign the number 10 to 10 is like delirious joy. 10 is so pleasant that it's like, please don't end. I really hope that this feeling continues. conversely, is your experience right now unpleasant? And we'll make 0 so unpleasant, it's like not torture, but just like really super not digging this. Really want out of this situation. Want to change it. Want to, if it's a physical thing, want to move. It's a mental thing. Want a distraction. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Or maybe you're somewhere in the middle. So we'll make 5 neutral. Come see, come saw. Neutrality has the benefit, if it's paired with openness, of allowing us to get curious. What's actually even happening right now? And neutrality also could just be a lack of feeling. You don't feel any way in particular about what's going on. Cool. That's all good. I'm going to leave us in silence for a few minutes. Before I do, have you got your number? Your sort of initial state. Again, this is not scientific, it's just to give you sort of a ground. Got a sense of the lay of the land before we commence more deeply. So I'm going to give myself just, again, it's not really about the number, it's not really about experience things a particular way, like trying to control things, but if I'm just describing, I'd say I'm about a 4. So neutral, just tilting into unpleasant. Why unpleasant? Well, isn't that interesting? You just kind of hold that. Why did I land there? What's my feeling about my experience? And I'm not trying to answer that analytically. I'm not trying to search for an answer in my head or to point to an experience in my body. Or to identify any particular phenomena in the world around me. Instead, it is just an awareness of that feeling tone. So let's just abide, if you will. Just abide in it. Just chill out in that feeling. Oh, see, eyes want to close. Open them back up. So that's me zoning out and waking back up. So we will become distracted, right? Thoughts will come up. Things will pull us off of this way of relating to ourselves and to our experience. So when you notice that you've become distracted, simply place your attention back in the room. And then again, it's a little check. What's my feeling tone right now? You can stay with the numbers if you want, almost like you've got a sliding scale, because this is the cool thing about this. Nothing is doubt, no matter how hard you try. You're not going to stay at a 10 forever, nor will you stay at a 0 or a 1. The dial's going to move. So you could just sort of note that, oh, it's a 3 now. Oh, it's a 7.258. Or we can drop into just those 3 simple labels and just drop the scale altogether. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Timing by feel here. I'm going to leave us for, like I say, for a few minutes, and then I'll duck back in, check back in, and just make sure that we're all still on board. Just going to leave us a bit longer, but we just had someone join us. So it provides an opportune time to point to how this practice can roll out. On my screen in front of me, it popped up, admit person into Zoom meeting, right? And I checked that. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. And as it happens, my reaction was it was pleasant. It's like, a friend is here. So there's, that feeling, tone of happy, of eager. And again, that's not something I was trying to control. That's not something that any of us need to. But the simple act of becoming mindful of what the feeling is. So there's a little cue for our late joiners. And welcome. Notice yourself drifting. Drop back into that number scale or drop into a note. Okay, good. Let's stay with this. I think there was a chat message that came up across there. My feeling there was one of confusion. I can't read it. So But I suppose feeling tone, slightly negative, like, what's there? It's okay, and I know that I'll come to that. I apologize for not being able to attend. I'm so busy attending to the feeling. Okay. I notice our own tendency for our minds to want to classify and to label and to put names on things. So really here, this is truly like, it's more sort of amorphous than specific. So for instance, a fly came through my field of vision a moment or two ago. And my brain labeled it fly, danger, bug bite, buzzing, all of that stuff. And that chatter, I just kind of let that go. Okay, that has a way of promoting its own, the thoughts and the emotions, and then we start rolling from there. Instead, I just kind of noticed, there's something moving in my field of vision. And actually, it was sort of pleasant. It was interesting. What's going on there? Right, so, pro tip that, in terms of that, if and when you do perceive any sort of external object, anything that is grabbed your attention, as best you can, let go of the desire or the kind of automatic reactivity of labeling it or naming it. And instead, just ask the question: pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. You may even be surprised, with a bit of practice, if you can do that, that some things, some phenomena that might otherwise grab you and scream unpleasant, 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 or the opposite, you might be perceiving them or sensing them quite differently. It's a different lens. Sort of teasing out this way of relating to the world from our other ways. Good. Or should I say pleasant or unpleasant or neutral? Again, verbal tick of defaulting me. Good. But it could be any of those things. You might also notice, so So there's a way of sort of becoming a bit more discerning about what's happening, about the character of your experience. And it's this. Are particular forms of sense objects, do they tend to strike you initially as pleasant or unpleasant or neutral? So for instance, audio or audible interruptions, a sound the dog's making, or a noise in the other room, or some sort of electronic buzz, anything that can feel like an interruption, particularly if we're in this sort of more meditative state. There can be kind of like an almost automatic, like knee-jerk, unpleasant. So you can notice that, and then you can notice the noticing. You label it unpleasant. How's that showing up? How are you understanding that? Where exactly is that feeling coming from? No one's telling you that it's unpleasant. No one's telling you it can't be something quite different. So we can get curious about individual occurrences, sort of as our experience changes and something rises up or grabs our working attention. What's our experience of that? Or, again, without getting kind of caught up in our thoughts, we can get curious about how sight changes in our visual field, or feeling or sound, or again, it's only limited by the limits of our experience. Just noticing our own inherent tendency to feel these things in a particular way. So if you're experiencing unpleasantness, you may have already had, particular moments or particular things that provoked that feeling of unpleasant. Not for me. And yet I also suspect you've probably then, unless it's been an unremitting, 15 minutes of like, oh, this stinks, I'm really, and we can get hyper-focused, right? Especially in our bodies, but if we're in our physical environment, I find it's far more fluid. It's far less likely that we're going to be so, myopic and hung up in one particular aspect of our experience, whereas we can get caught up in our loops of thought, or particularly jagged emotions or intense physical sensations can grab us and not let go. But here, notice that unpleasantness doesn't last. So suffering ends, right? And pleasantness doesn't last. And so not getting too caught up in that, not stressing about that can also end suffering. The suffering of like clinging. Okay, let's take just a last little jag here. All again, just kind of recede and get out of the way. Recommit just for a final couple of minutes. Like this is the first moment on the mat or in your chair. Internally, name your experience. Pleasant, neutral, unpleasant. And return to those labels as frequently or infrequently as feels right, feels useful. Let's let that all go. I have absolutely no clue how long you're going to say. I'm going to guess that was about 20 minutes, but it may have been less, it may have been more. I'm just going to step off camera here for a second, see if I can get a sense from the recording. Ha! More. Showing 32. Now there was a little setup, so we probably went about 25 minutes there. But there you go. Any questions? Any comments about that? It's not a complex. Like, it's a pretty simple practice, but I really dig that one. Which isn't to say that it's necessarily always pleasant, but the simplicity of it and the just tracking, the flow of experience is kind of cool. Yeah? Nice. Gesundheit, by the way. Someone sneezing there in the background. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just the funny thing is, I find too with that is that the more aware I become of how fleeting those reactions are, or those feelings are, it's a lot easier not to get caught up in it. Yeah, so it's like all of a sudden ding 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 ding, and there's something ringing in your ear. If you're super focused and concentrating, that can be, you're like irritating, like what's that bugging me? But right? And there you go. Right on. Cool. Right on. Excellent. Well, this is step 2 in a journey of 5. It's 5 aggregates, right? So we've moved through form and feeling, and I'll break another one out in the next in the series out in a couple of weeks, and next week we're moving. And I can't remember exactly where we are in the series, that physical movement series, the asana series, but I have a feeling we're definitely on the mat. But I can't remember what our key form is. We might be in tabletop, or we might be sitting. But anyway, we'll figure it out next week. Yeah. Take care of yourself out there. Or yourselves, I should say. Actually, no, I got that. I'm not sure who it was that I admitted. Was it Pearl? Oh, it's Barry! Barry, hey! I'm just going to stop the other video. Goodbye out there on the interweb. Oh, Perry, that's so great. I'm glad you were able to join us.
Hold on a second.